Call to order at 7:02, this town council meeting on July 26, 2022. If we could please rise. You're asking to do an extended 30-second moment of silence for Sergeant First Class Michael Clark, who died very suddenly. I know they have family in Tolland, so thank you for that.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Everybody seated. Item 4 is proclamation presentations. We have none at this time. So we'll move to item 5, which is public petitions, communications, and public participation on any subject in the jurisdiction of the town council with a 2-minute limit. If you're in the audience, you can approach the table. Otherwise, if you are online, you can raise hand function or star 9. So if there's anyone that would like to speak on any topic in the town, Mr. Powell, and then
This Andy Powell, 21 Clearbrook Drive in Tolland. July 16th, 2 o'clock, 3 o'clock in the morning, I had a heart attack. And it is because of the timely, professional, and complete response that I had from Tolland EMS and Tolland Fire, that I was able to get to Hartford Hospital and be in a position to start my rehabilitation. The fact that they were there, the fact that they did and they knew what to do and to be able to get me to the right place and provide treatment while I was there is a clear indication I'm still here. So we all expect it, but at 2 o'clock in the morning on a Saturday, which could have been the worst day of my life, ended up being a great day in my life because I was able to continue and move forward. So my deep felt thanks to Tolland EMS, the fire police, and all those that were involved. We need them. We need them all the time, and I'm living proof of that. So thank you.
Mr. Powell. Merrell?
Did you want to go online or you don't care?
No, you can do
Okay.
yeah, first, and then Claudette will do after Merrell.
So honorable council members, I stand before you this evening as a private citizen, property owner, and representative of family whose property was vandalized in broad daylight on the evening of Sunday, July 17th. I'm asking this council to make a clear statement emphasizing the importance of respecting private property rights and rejecting the attempted intimidation of my family and the LGBTQ community that this act was intended to convey. As many of you may know, my family's sign on commercial property across from the exit 68 eastbound off-ramp was painted with a rainbow. My husband and I painted the rainbow after previous vandals ripped down, damaged, or stole previously placed placards and a flag commemorating nationally recognized events of action and inclusion. After every act of vandalism, we have hardened the sign infrastructure and continue to post positive and inclusive messages for events such as Earth Day, Black History Month, Women's History Month, Juneteenth, Pride Month, and the commemoration of 9/11. The man who damaged my family's property was captured in pictures and communicated to passersby that he committed this crime so that he would not have to see the implied message the rainbow conveyed, nor acknowledge the members of the LGBTQ community that it supports. His intent was to erase the reference to certain human beings from the public space. His actions have only made my family double down on Tolland's goodness, on its generosity of spirit, and its confidence in accepting all human beings as contributors to the fabric of our community. We ask you to join us by emphasizing that such intimidation has no place in Tolland. We know from history that when bigoted bullies are emboldened, whether through action or through silence, that no one in the community is safe eventually. Silence is interpreted by bigots and bullies as acceptance. Please don't give them this comfort. Thank you.
Thank you, Merrell. Claudette Morehouse.
Hi, everybody. This is Claudette Morehouse, 89 Merlot Way, Tolland. I actually have two comments. The first one is I just want to say that I'm in support of improving the Veterans Memorial on the town green. It's been pretty dormant for some time, and we now have a great group of veterans that want to improve it, expand on it, and make it what it should be. We need to honor these veterans with dignity and pride and honor. Apparently, there's discussion on maybe putting it over by the Lions Field, by the gazebo, which is not in very good view of people passing by. It doesn't have much traffic. The parade doesn't even go down there anymore. They go from senior center to the library. So I'm just asking that you would give consideration to giving us a little bit of leeway, and I would like to, maybe work with the veterans and the Historic Society, and maybe we can come up with something that's going to have dignity, class, respect that these veterans deserve. The monument's been there, so apparently it's been approved at some time, way back when. So it should set precedents that we should be able to clean it up and improve on it and not just leave it the way it is. So I'm just asking to give it some consideration for our veterans to keep it there and improve on it and expand on it. My other point is now that we have the well water results in the tests, I was just wondering where we're going to go from here. What the next step is, the town or the DEP. Thank you.
Thank you, Claudette. Appreciate that. Are there any other members of the public that would like to speak on any topic within the town? The 2-minute limit.
Good evening, Albert Mancini, 47 Plains Road, member of Tolland Veterans Recognition Commission. Through our tasks, we have come in contact with the Boy Scouts of America to adopt the field and create a veterans field. I'm going to piggyback with Claudette and go with the town green in conjunction with that. What this town lacks in veteran recognition, we make up for in our veterans. I've lived in this town 33 years of my life, and up until the pandemic, I didn't know we had such a monument. I brought here a rough sketch. Bear with me, it is a very rough draft of what I would like to see on the town green. I've also sent it to the town council's email for your viewing pleasures. I just want to put it on your radar. This is what we as the council are talking about in our chambers when we have our meetings, amongst many other things. But I would like the council to know that this is something we are actively pursuing as well. Thank you.
Any other members of the public? Going once and twice. All right, we'll move on to item 6, public hearing items. We have none. So 7A, reports of boards and committees responsible to the council. Councilman Murray, are there any updates for Birch Grove?
We are collecting the last paperwork from the vendor, from the contractor on the last change order, and then are going to start the process of project. It's coming.
Long time coming.
It is.
That is it for reports. So we'll go to town council liaisons and we'll start again with Councilman Murray.
I was not able to attend the agriculture meeting, the special meeting that happened earlier this month, but they have published their minutes. That's it.
Thank you, Councilman Murray. Councilor Khan.
I was away on vacation, so I don't have anything to report.
Thank you, Councilor Khan. Vice Chair Regan.
Thank you. Planning and zoning did meet last night, and we have a couple of members of their leadership here tonight. They discussed a couple of business items. 65 Kingsbury Ave, new commercial building was approved, and there was discussion of site plan modification concerning some drainage issues and an easement for stormwater. There was a discussion on 216 Merrell Road. They received an application for a gas station and convenience store with a drive-through, and all they've done at this point is accept the application, and they will consider it. And then there was an extensive discussion about sign policy, and I would refer you to the minutes for that because it was quite extensive and there's a lot of detail there. So anybody who's interested in that, I would refer you to the minutes or the video on that. And then we'll be discussing the Affordable Housing Trust Fund tonight, and thankfully the members of planning and zoning are here with us.
Thank you, Vice Chair Regan. Councilman Nuccio.
I'm looking at, I don't think I've had any meetings since our last town council meeting. I think I have nothing.
Councilman Luba.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, that, yes, there's no other meetings that I had, between the last meeting and today, that we do have the members of the Veterans Recognition Commission here, which, they can, present, some of the items that have been discussed over the past several weeks and, over the meetings. And, that's all I have.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Councilman Yudichak.
Yes, so mental health task force met on Monday, July 18th. They introduced a new member to the task force, Jessica, so if I say it wrong, Jessica Paluzzi. They were trying to form a subcommittee, a working group. To talk about the diversity and inclusion, right, John, but for some reason they couldn't form the subcommittee because it would have, they would have had to post more meetings and it would take a lot more staff, so I think they're planning on doing something different, like a working group, right? Is that what you understand?
Yeah.
Something like that,
Yeah,
okay,
we
so
can
there's
definitely-
still gonna be able to do something and report back to us. And then also, there's a new number nationwide for our mental health, it's just 3 digits now, 988, so if anybody needs support, or they need support themselves, it's a quicker way to contact, to get help for mental health. And let's see, the Commission with People with Disabilities met on July 21st. They discussed a workforce plan that's, I believe, in draft forward from the state. We followed up and talked more about the green and the walkway, positive, talk about that. And then they would like Mr. Foley to come to a meeting, get to know you and just hear what they do. And if I miss anything, please jump in on that as well. And then everybody really introduce themselves and gave backgrounds on them. And it's a really talented group with lots of experience. And then they're also trying to work on ideas, how to spread more information on the good work that's out there. Besides kids in school, they become people in society, and there's other things like getting a job and living and stuff. So, did I miss anything there?
I think that was.
Okay. And then tomorrow, Tammy, Lisa, and new member Brian, we have a lot to discuss on our meeting, right? We have, what do we have? 11 things that possibly could come to the council eventually, yes, so that's all I have.
Councilman Yudichak. I had the Water Commission on the 18th. They're having an ongoing issue with pump well 1. I think it's had a couple of failures, and the second failure is not under warranty, so they're trying to look into what the cause of that issue is. I think the Tory Road meter was replaced, and they found that there was overcharging, so the town will be credited for overbilling from CWC. And they did the testing for the PFOAs that was recommended, and they found none, so that is good news. And I think just as a reminder that they're spreading information to their customers about the stage 2 drought, and so I think there's encouraging the town to also send a separate message to the entire community about water conservation efforts. And then on the 28th, the Conservation Commission is doing a site walk, a hike on King Riverside Conservation Area. So that's a public meeting and a generally easygoing site walk. So if anyone wants to go for a hike, I'd encourage them to go on Thursday. And that is it for me. So we'll move on to item 8, which is new business. So 8.1 is a consideration of resolution to authorize Lions Field area to be designated as the Tolland Veterans Memorial Park. And I know the chairman, Mr. Maynard, is also online. So thank you for being able to be here this evening virtually, and thank you for your due diligence, and hope you are doing well and being healthy. But we do have before a consideration to designate the field. There was a favorable memo sent from the Recreation Advisory Board through Director Bruce Watts. And that is pretty much the main summary. I don't know, Mr. Foley, if there's anything else to add.
There is not, and I completely covered it, but if there's anything more, Bruce, wanted on the line as well, but I think we got it.
Thank you. Are there any questions from council members? Or if there's no questions, that Mr. Maynard would like to provide any additional information?
Yes, I would like to. Thank you very much. Yes, I am feeling a lot better.
Good,
Having
thank you.
done this all my life, it feels like a sinus cold right now. So there is no reason that we had ever thought of not doing something on the green. It's been discussed. There are plans to do it. I've been trying to get somebody to give us a price on putting the additional emblems. And it seems like nobody wants to do that kind of thing anymore. But I did get an approximate, it's going to be between $600 and $800 an emblem to put those Space Force and the National Guard. And I guess we need to have a discussion on whether we would want to also add the Merchant Marines on the monument on the green. I have had a lot of very positive working with Claudette and with Lisa Burns on, matter of fact, we have given them spot recognition for that area. They are duly advised that they can do what they would like to that area. And I am more than willing to start there and get the flowers and bushes removed, because the bushes around the monument are overgrown. And I know that Claudette has some ideas about putting foliage around it that would be more appropriate. If I pushed a little hard, I should be able to get that tree down if we needed it in front of the town hall. It was supposed to have come down 15 years ago, so I was told. And that would be a good spot where we could put, some sort of monument area. Now, being also the media guy for the Tolland Historical Society, I know Kathy's feelings on anything on the green. So there's going to be discussion there on what we are going to be allowed to do. But I'm more than willing to make that the first focus if that's what the town would like, and if that seems to be the direction we want to go. In reference to what Claude had said about Crandall's, I know my wife and I, almost every weekend, on Sunday usually, we go down and walk the paths, and a lot of people walk those paths, and they have their dogs. It's quiet, and you can really sit there by the lake and contemplate. And I was told that about 14 years ago, that big rock that's on that piece of property that we're talking about was the beginnings, what was going to be the Veterans Memorial Park. Whether that's true or not true, I really don't know, but it sounded good to me at the time. So that would be a place that we could do a very nice job of putting a very nice monument area in. I probably won't show up tonight, but I have on my computer, I've taken pictures. Matter of fact, all of our commission, everywhere we go, we take pictures of parks that we see along the way. And we've got quite a bit of information. Now, we don't have Nathan Hill in our town, so we're not going to have something like Coventry does. This is a beautiful park. I mean, if you've ever been over there, it's quite extensive. But I did take pictures last month of Ellington because they just finished theirs. And I think it's on their scale is what we probably would end up doing, for a memorial park, if we got into that. So we're here to serve the town of Tolland and our veterans. And so we certainly will do whatever the majority feels that they would like to have done first. I think we can do all of it, but it's going to take time, it's going to take money. And I'm very aware that in these times, we're going to have to raise a lot of the money ourselves. So Claudette and Lisa, have no fear. I read your emails, and if it's decided that we want to start on the green to work on that monument first, I'm sure that in committee, we can make that happen. Being that I'm a media person, I do a lot of stuff in town. This winter, I'm planning to digitize the Wall of Honor. We will always leave the Wall of Honor where it is as a physical presence. But these days, I'm getting 4 and 5 veterans now sending letters wanting to add their name to the wall. And, you know, that doesn't happen. Every time a name comes in, it gets put on the wall. And I feel that by digitizing it, we would be able to, more people would be able to see the Wall of Honor. Knows if somebody from Tolland moved to California and wanted to see if his father was on the wall, you'd be able to go online and look at the Tolland Wall of Honor. I have also been selected to be one of the few people in town that are going to be part of this oral history that's going to be taking place here in the very near future. And I'm going to concentrate on veterans. I was in the Air Force and I know I had some funny things happen, and I'm going to do a little chit chat. And we're hoping that veterans would like to tell their story. And that would be part of the wall. In other words, during the World War II, people that had given interviews would be more than happy to put a portion of it to make it interesting for people to want to, sight in and look at the wall. And then when you get to the monuments, I have always felt it kind of fruitless to put monuments on a green with people's names on it, which is very nice. But there again, if it was all digitized, we would then be able to just have one spot on the green where we have engraved into the monument the website where you can go and see the Wall of Honor. You could sit there for hours and meditate and be able to look at the wall. So I don't know what your feelings are on that, but I thought that it was a good idea. So we're here to serve you, and I think we now can discuss what is it that we want to do first. I don't think it's a case of do we choose between this or that, but I think we can over time move down the road and do it all. Any comments from the
Well,
board?
thank you, thank you, Mr. Maynard, for the summary of the project as well as the general commentary on what the Veterans Commission is doing, and we're excited for all the work you guys are doing. For the purposes of the agenda item, we're really strictly only limited to discussing the resolution, which is for the designation of the Veterans Memorial Park. We can have some general discussions. I think people can make side commentary about the order in which we do things, but I think for the purposes of the agenda item, it would be good to focus on the designation of that space. But I think we've definitely received a lot of input from residents, and I think even conversations with other counselors that we do want to keep that conversation going with regards to the green. But at this point, I think the priority, and I think a lot of the energy and enthusiasm I've heard from folks right now is at that space in the current Lions Field Park. But I'll open the floor to any other questions or comments from council members.
No, you
Councilor Lugo.
go.
Councilor Nuccio?
Fern, thank you for that presentation. So, I'm supportive of both. I absolutely think making, the town, like the down by Crandall's, naming that like a Veterans Memorial Park, I think is a great idea. But I would definitely, I am strong support of getting rid of the tree and expanding the green and having a true, monument there to our vets. I think we can do both. I don't kind of see them as the same thing. I would not want the Veterans Memorial to be at Crandall's because I think as people have brought up, I've talked to a lot of people, we don't walk past there in the parade. It's not a highly traveled area. My brother's on that wall downstairs. I know like they deserve that. They deserve that right there, that everybody drives by, that everybody sees, that people can stop and see. I love the idea of your digital and having interviews with people and having people tell their stories. I think that's great. But I want to say I'm supportive of us making the park a Veterans Memorial Park, as long as we are also pursuing a more glorious, as it should be, monument on the green. And I can't imagine that anybody's going to come out and say that we should not recognize our vets on the green. And if they do, be happy to have that question and debate with somebody, because that is where it belongs. So if we can do both, if the idea is that we do both, then I'm supportive of this. But if this is, we're going to just do it here and we're going to put it down and walk away, then I'm not.
Yeah, no, that is mostly for the agenda items, only for the designation purpose. I think I've spoken with Councilor Luben and a few other folks that there's definitely an interest to try and work on both. I think this is actually a really great example of how Pern and the group went through really a really solid process of going to the Recreation Advisory Board that has cognizance and getting that approval and getting that green light before moving forward. And I think go through that same process with the historic district. I think we could see similar results and have some uniformity of thought before it all comes together. But I think it should be a continued discussion, absolutely.
I could see us even making like the Crandall's area down there like a meditative garden. You know, something like that. It's got the swing that's right by the water, you know, you have the walking paths and that, you know, meditative garden in honor of our vets. Wholeheartedly support that, as long as we get there. And the Kevin's court all over again.
I totally support that. Okay.
Thank you, Pern.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I wish I had gone first because she just said everything I was going to say, but that I agree wholeheartedly with that. I think that is something that having heard the discussions and been involved in the discussions with regard to what's going on and knowing the general direction that the VRC is looking, I think that is something that is appropriate. I would fully support the designation of Crandall's as Veteran Park. I think it's something that is a good start. But I agree that we need to continue on and as has been proposed, I actually pulled up Elsa rendering as part of the email that he sent up, and I think it's something that's a good starting point. I think it is something that we do need something to be more recognizable on the green, having traveled through the areas, and as I've said in other meetings, being there in Tolland, being there in Lebanon, being in other places where they actually have whole like actual monuments on their town green. I think that's something that's that designation of the park is a good start, but it's just a start. And again, it ties into a vision that I've expressed at prior meetings and about actually having a cohesive development plan for the green. I think that we need, the green is nice, but if we have something else that's there to actually bring people to there instead of just a big green area, I think that's something that could also help. So, and I want to say to the members of VRC, thank you, gentlemen, that are here. It's been great serving with you. It's been great working with you on this. I know how much work you put in on this, and I think that that you know, we could not have picked a better group of people to be on the VRC here, because I think that it's something that we've always wanted to move forward with it. That's why I made that as one of my goals when I first got elected last session, and I'm glad to see it's going forward. And I can't wait to see where else this takes us. So thank you all. Thank you very much, Mr. Chair.
No, thank you, Councilor. I do actually appreciate the idea of the connectivity with the green, because you could easily moving forward when this park is established, walking towards the monument, and then from there you can get to the military museum right down the road and to all the other museums. So there is kind of a veterans gateway that could be established essentially.
We have walking path already,
Yeah.
you know, from that side of Crandall's all the way over to here to the sidewalk.
Yep.
Mhm.
Councilor Nugent.
So, thank people to my left.
I said go first.
I know, well, first I'm gonna thank all service members and those that have served our country, so thank you. Most importantly, thank you. So I know I heard someone say that the monument's overgrown. Does the Public Works Department not take care of that area?
Well, there's a lot of history.
Yeah, on US Comics and over the space, yeah.
But I guess, I know it's separate from this, but we think that that would be, if it's town property, is it town property?
It is town
Mm,
property, but but it was donated and maintained, so the Boy Scouts and then them and the Veterans Commission and Lisa and Claudette have been over there taking care of it, and that's.
It's a bit of a gray area, but I know, I think in the very least, like Councilman Lucio mentioned, the tree that's been well overdue to be taken down, that could be beneficial towards the next phases of veterans. You know, the monument being expanded or considered for expansion is town property, and will be the cognizance of Public Works to take care of that, so.
Okay, I think that's really it. I think that again, that something should be on the green as well, because that would be a great reason for people to stop and look, and I think the digital idea is fantastic too. That's really all I have.
Jack, are there any other comments from council members? All right. If there's no other discussion from council members, I would entertain a motion to approve the resolution as outlined in 8.1.
I'll make that motion, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Councilor Wu, seconded by Councilor Nuccio. And we're all here in public in person this time, so you can do a voice vote. So all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any discussion?
Is there any discussion?
I was just gonna add, really do an addendum to include the green somehow.
I think the discussion, I think, is a good intent. I think it gives members of the VRC here, as well as Mr. Maynard, I think, a charge to go forward and continue working with our liaison, Councilor Luba,
Okay,
to bring that back to a future meeting.
okay, fair enough.
No worries. All right, so we'll go back to the vote. So all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, that is unanimous. So thank you, everyone. Thank you to the VRC for coming out. Thank you, Vern, for your continued leadership, and looking forward to future conversations about improving all of our memorials.
And thank you, Bruce, for being on here as well.
Yeah, thank you.
Patiently waiting.
All right, so that brings us.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Vern.
As a salesman in the industry, I know that when you get the order, you say thank you very much and you leave. You don't say another word.
Have a good night. Thank you. Vern. All right, so we are now on to item 2, which is consideration of a resolution to approve a bid waiver for the purchase of the new ambulance, as well as labor and materials associated with the replacement of ambulance 540. And I know we have with us Chief Lytle tonight, so if there are any questions regarding that bid waiver, he can certainly answer those for council members. But I believe it is a part of our capital improvement project or plan for 22-23. So the bid waiver's intent is to go forward with Eastwood Fire Rescue and Sales, who we've used in the past. So let me know, Brian, if there's anything like that.
Industry delays are really pushing this. It's taking so long now to get emergency vehicles. The longer we wait, the longer it takes, the price goes up. So there's, I don't think we can argue the importance of ambulances in our town, but also there's a fiscal note attached to it too that we need to act prudently here.
Thank you. Are there any questions from council members for Mr. Foley or Chief Lytle?
No, I'm just pointing to you first.
Oh, no, can you go first?
On that.
Councilman Murray.
This is similar to an item we were asked to and did approve last month regarding a different piece of equipment. I have similar questions to what I had last month. Why was this particular firm selected and recommended to do this work?
So I'll start. We used them last time, and we bought this exact same piece of equipment that's being replaced in 2017. And I believe, was that a bid process last time that we used them through?
We've been going through this process for the last 10 years.
Okay, so they're very reputable, and their customer service is met the needs of the fire department. But basically, the long and short of it is the history and relationship with that company.
Right, so I'm sorry, I didn't understand what the chief meant by we've been going through this. Does that mean we went out to bid?
2 years ago, we went out to bid on a lot of the ambulances. We switched over to this vendor being so close and the service that they end up providing. Similar to about 4 years ago when we had an ambulance that got into an accident, we were able to get one of their spare ambulances and go back on the road within less than 2.5 weeks. We've been working with them, like I said, probably for the last 4 cycles, because we replaced ambulances every 5 years. So at least the last 4 or 5 cycles, we're extremely proud with them. The service, the ambulance went down 2 weeks ago. They were out at 11 o'clock at night, and they actually come down, pick the ambulance up, bring it back to the shop, and on a Saturday or Sunday, I don't pay when they come in. They actually place the ambulance back into the service, call 911 and put it back in service for us. So they've gone out above and beyond. The reason for the push right now is similar to what Brian's been up saying. The price went up 1 month, 35,000. So, bid wise, whatever, there's only a few manufacturers that are around here, but emergency services obviously is all delayed.
Thank you, that's very helpful, so thank you for all that information. I definitely understand and agree with the the need to have the ambulance, obviously, to get it for the best price, understanding industry delays, et cetera. It feels like some of this is the second public safety item that is on the current capital year budget that has been requested for a bid waiver. And that to me it feels a little weird, right? That are we gonna proceed with all of our public safety purchases with bid waivers? I'm just, I've worked on a project that was subject to bid waiver. I understand the importance of it. And it is an important part of the process sometimes. I want to make sure that this is one of those times where we really need to waive bid.
I think it's a dynamic time that we're in, unfortunately. I would love to put it out to bid and have the luxury of time and money, but I think we're in a very dynamic time. I think they're having difficulty getting regular police cars and such, just getting a VIN number to start the process. So I would assure you that no, that's not how we would move forward. No, we'll bid everything out. I assure you, unless again, some anomaly presents itself as I think this time we're living in now, but all questions I could.
Okay, thank you. Thank you. I appreciate that. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilman Brennan. Councilman Minichia?
We're battling tonight. I just wanted to confirm this is the one that we talked about that's on the CIP program. It's coming out of the ambulance reserve fund, and that what limitations do we think we're gonna see because of the supply chain? I know we're still waiting for a fire truck that we're ordering like 3 years ago. So we have the other fire truck on here, 2 fire trucks now, and the ambulance. So do we think this is gonna have the same kind of holdup that we're seeing?
We're at this point, we're not even sure what model year we're gonna get. It's gonna be a 2022 or a 2023, which by the way, will have a price point adjustment on it as well. So I think John can speak to the anticipated delays if we order today and moving forward. Anything on that, John?
I would love to come in the month of June because this money comes out of the ambulance fees, obviously. The money's already designated for it, but I figured do it proper come July. By waiting that 1 month, I went over 35,000. The last ambulance that I ordered last September-ish, that it's the same manufacturer, same bid waiver as last June. You can look it up, the same exact feature. I still don't have a VIN number. And the problem is I'm trying to speed the process up because the stretcher alone went up $8,000 and the power load that goes in a unit went up another 12. So we go out and you wait that 30 days for bid wise, you go back out, we could be looking at another 70, 80,000.
Well, I think that's my concern. If we say we're gonna do a bid waiver, we're gonna do this one today, we're gonna order it. What are the odds that they're gonna come back and say, it's gonna take us 18 months and BT does,
So
it's now $80,000 higher. Do we lock in the price? Will we lock this in? Do we lock-
There's 22 ambulances that are on a list right now. I'm like number 11, and I'm waiting to get down from last year's order. And the problem is that ambulance 540, the electronics that they make in the modulars, they're not out there and they're not replaceable. So if that ambulance goes down, we're down 1 ambulance in town. So similar to my guys who got back from the factory for the bid, we went out to bid for the replacement of the rescue truck. And we had, 4, 5, 6 different manufacturers. We did the lowest bid. The guy just got back from the factory from looking at that last weekend. That same price of last year's truck at $750 just went to $850. And there's changes that need to be made. And I told these guys when they came back from Pennsylvania, listen, changes or no changes, we gotta send, I need you to clarify what we have to change on the next one because we build standardized equipment in town. So you can drive on any of the stations. That's why we try to go and we try to match similar to the Reaper because they're sister trucks having the same work done. So we're trying to finalize those specs to get it on your agenda to send out. It was approved at the last council meeting, but I need to get the specs approved and then send out. So there's another week and a half. And right now, even with the change orders that are down at the manufacturer, there's dollars that these guys are fighting for that are their problems, not our problems, but we're trying to crunch that price down because everything that was already there, and if we do a change order, those are 50 to 75% change order prices. Similar to other projects that other people have worked out of town. So it's just, we're on the catch-22, but the longer we just keep waiting, the delays are going and going farther and farther. So we're just trying to get back on the list. And like Brian said, exactly, Ford hasn't released the 223 discount or any other prices. They haven't even listed that yet. So the K9 truck that I ordered last year, the replacement of the animal control truck, that's just a simple Ford F-250. I ain't got a VIN number on that yet either.
So I guess though, my question is, if we lock this in now.
Yep.
Does that lock the price in?
They're gonna come back, they tried to already come back once this year, and we have really solid language in the bid specs where they try to come back and say the price increased by 6,400. I said, well, sorry, but we signed the deal. You.
That's what I need to hear, John.
Yep.
If we do this now, we
Yep.
waive the bid, this is
Yep.
the price, they can't come back in 18 months and charge us.
That's why, exactly, same as I'm trying to get the specs done on Pennsylvania, and that's why, because that's due here, hopefully sometime end of August wise. But they have a responsibility to deliver that truck, otherwise they start paying us back, so we're pushing. I mean, the only thing you're gonna see a surprise on the agenda is for me to come for after the surplus rescue, which then I'll sell that, because right now the used market's really high, and that goes back into that same, so I got a plan, just can't get the pieces to the plan.
Okay, so I guess that's just my thing. If we're gonna lock this price in and get it locked, then, I kind of feel like what Katie's saying, it's like, okay, this last time, but, I agree that, we have a good process and going forward, we really need to kind of like do that, but I understand the market that we're in. So if this is gonna lock the price and get us in at a locked price that we know about, then we have to do fiscal year.
September strike, we'll have a 35% price increase by the structure and power loads. By me having everything locked into this package, then I can start pulling purchase orders off of it, locking it, but I can delay the shipping and I can delay stuff, but I'm locked into the order.
I don't want you to delay it, John. We need the damn ambulance, get the ambulance, like, let's not delay it, but, but I just make sure, like, that, I just wanna lock the, make sure that I'm good.
Counselor Luba?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm gonna build on what Tammy said here as well. Beyond locking in, I mean, I understand locking in, that's great. What about damages if they would say, because they could say, you know what, we know we're locked in, what are you gonna do about it? We just can't do it without this, and so we're not gonna provide products. So it's a matter of, is there a provision inside the contract or inside the purchase agreement regarding damages where if they can't do it, and we have to sue for specific performance, are they gonna, is there a provision for damages for legal fees if we have to do that? Or is, within the purchase agreement, is there a provision inside there saying that if they refuse to perform and we have to go outside and now we're paying because of the delay of our reliance upon them, that it's $100,000 more that they have to offset those damages? I mean, that's what something, locking in the price is great, but that doesn't mean that that locks them into performance. And so if we're gonna do a bid waiver on this, that's something that I'd be looking at as far as any type of agreement. And I would put to Mr. Foley here to make sure that something's inside that agreement that says that, that these are damages, and if you fail to perform, then you either pay for suit for specific performance, or you pay for the damages afterwards for us, for anything that we have to pay above and beyond what our agreed purchase price is.
John, is that kind of cheap?
So there's performance, general bid specs, there's generally terminology, and most 99% of the performance bonds and performance measures.
We
So,
can-
and that's reviewed obviously by our HR and our attorney before it ends up going out.
Okay, well, I just want to make sure that that's inside there, because if that's something where,
It's very tough on that.
because, well, I'm just saying that because I've seen it already with the state police in the area that I work in, where people are just saying, can't perform. Sorry, what are you gonna do? And I don't want us to be in that position.
And they've come back once already, and I haven't lost my place in line, so they can cancel our order, so we're still in there and I haven't paid that other dollar.
Okay. That's all I have, Mr. Chair. Thank you.
Thank you, Counselor Luba. Are there any other questions from council members? All right, seeing none, I would entertain a motion to approve the resolution as outlined in 8.2.
So moved.
by Councilman Murray. Seconded-
Oh, no, Colleen raised her hand.
Seconded by Councilman Yudichak. Is there any further discussion? Seeing no further discussion, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That is unanimous. Thank you. Lock in.
Quickly,
Yeah.
Right now.
call them up right now, yeah.
So we're now on to 8.3, which is the discussion of the potential creation of affordable housing trust fund. We do have a sample ordinance, but we also have with us tonight David Corcoran, head of planning development, and both chair and vice chair, Andy Powell and Merrell Road with us for any questions or commentary. And the general outline of this item is a discussion with the intent of having a future joint meeting with NEC to potentially finalize language for a affordable housing trust. So anything else?
I do not. We have a good team of experts here. Thank you.
Right, so, good evening. So the purpose of this is to, the purpose of this is to discuss, as you'd mentioned, the, both what planning and zoning's been up to on their end, provide you with an update on that, and then two, talk about, your side of the shop, which is the potential adoption and then administration of an affordable housing trust fund, from which, money would come in that is set by planning and zoning regulations. So just to remind everybody as to where we are and why we're here. So in the 2019 Plan of Conservation and Development, the Planning and Zoning Commission worked pretty carefully, I think, to identify housing goals and actually to develop a set of goals that are in compliance with new affordable housing planning statutes, and we actually came in way ahead of the curve. Most communities are just submitting theirs right now. They were due at the end of June. We adopted ours all the way back in 2019. So we got in ahead of the game. One of the goals that was in the Plan of Conservation and Development here was to try to require that any development with at least 5 units is contributing affordable housing to our requirements, with the idea that the state would really love to see us have 10% affordable housing stock. They have a mechanism in place to allow developers to circumvent zoning if they were to come in to build affordable, and we're not at that number. So right now we sit at about 4.5%. With the idea of kind of nudging this forward, planning and zoning, when they did some regulation updates last year, proposed modifying this so that effectively any new development with at least 5 units would be required to provide at least 5% affordable housing. But the idea of at least nudging us closer to 10, not necessarily getting all the way there, but pushing it in the right direction. They also offered a buyout in the initial proposal, which was $50,000 if a developer opted not to construct any affordable housing. So we presented that to you all several months ago and went to a joint meeting. The general consensus was that maybe that needed some massaging and some fine tuning. So planning and zoning has been working the last few meetings on modifying that a bit. So among the things we're looking at is switching the sort of $50,000 to a scaled number, potentially not having the threshold kick in until 10 units. So if you built a 9-unit development, you may not have to comply, but at 10 you would need to. And then the idea would be that at 10 you would pay a percentage of the $50,000. So you pay potentially $25,000 instead of the 50. So that's what they're looking at. Also looking at kind of reframing that reg to allow for them to grant a density bonus. If somebody wants to come in and go above and beyond and build more than, or build at least 10% affordable to get us over where we're supposed to be, that we would potentially be able to grant a density bonus. Where the commission's still working out exactly what the number is and how much denser they might want it to be, but that's where they are. Additionally, they're looking at a couple other items to encourage maybe not necessarily deed restricted affordable housing, but to generally support affordable housing. We're looking at removing the special permit requirement for 2-family housing and moving to allowing that by zoning permit. So that would remove the need for public hearing and having to go to commission and all that. We may potentially come to you all later with a proposal to modify our special permit fees as they pertain to multifamily housing. Ours in the survey of what our surrounding communities are doing, ours are way out of whack. The Santinis for their 240 unit development had to pay about double what they had to pay in Vernon or Ellington. They've done developments in the past, so they had to pay around 20,000 instead of around 10. So looking at maybe there's a need to modify those numbers. So I guess the idea is that we'll come to you all with more information on that, with a joint meeting at some later point with firm proposals. But then on your end, the way this is drafted, it requires council to adopt the Affordable Housing Trust Fund. So I've included a sample ordinance that shows kind of how this could work. We are, as I mentioned, we're in a little bit of good shape because we're ahead of the curve. We were one of the first to adopt a statutorily compliant affordable housing plan. One nice thing that happened is they were all due at the end of June, so they're starting to roll in on the state's website. So I've had a chance to go and look at what other communities are doing in a nice singular location. We're ahead of the game. A lot of communities have this as a goal. Not a whole lot have already moved to the point where they're ready to move forward on adopting this. So I know we'd circulated that memo before from Mike Amato and Peggy that shows a few other examples of other towns that have tried to do something like this. Many of them are down in Fairfield County. That is where it's at right now. There's Mansfield does have a fee in lieu program. They have an affordable housing trust fund of sorts. It's a private entity as opposed to something that is town operated. The town has nothing to do with it. They are looking at passing an affordable housing trust fund. They haven't done it yet. But that's where it is. So the sample ordinance that I provided is largely based on the one that Fairfield has in place. The consultant that helped us initially draft all this provided it for us, and we modified it a little bit to be a little bit more Tolland specific to our ideas. But the idea here would be that if you were to pass such an ordinance, the way this would work is it would create a somewhat of an advisory committee, kind of like the Land Acquisition Advisory Committee, that could recommend expenditures from the fund to you all for you to ultimately approve. The idea with this is that people are going to build affordable housing. We really don't want people to buy out. We'd rather have them build affordable housing. So the thinking here is that there really shouldn't be expenditures or deposits into this fund potentially for years at a time, right? It shouldn't be something that's terribly active. What we'd be looking at is, especially if we raise the number to 10, a greater than 10 unit development in which somebody opts not to build any affordable housing. But with the idea that we're kind of discouraging them. So it's not something that should be really, really active. And because of that, we sort of left the potential eligible expenditures fairly broad based on what's allowed in statute. That's in CGS 82I, which is towards the back of your packet, sort of explains where stuff can go from that trust fund. But the idea would be that we could use it either for rehabilitation of existing town-owned housing, if there's a need to do that, or potentially a rehabilitation of housing through the nonprofit housing authority, or we could use it for negotiation with developers if they want to go way above and beyond and build. If somebody wants to build 20 or 30 or 40 or 50% affordable housing, we could potentially use money from that fund to entice a developer to do that. So that's kind of the way we've tried to structure this. And with that, I guess we're happy to answer any questions.
Any questions from council members at this time? Councilor Luba.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. First up, I want to say that I'm very happy that we got this update. When I was reading through this, I was very dismayed when I'm like, I still saw the 5% for 5 or more units, 5 units or more. I'm like, what do we have that discussion for all those months ago? And what's going on? But now that I hear that there's actually consideration for for changing some of the requirements, changing it, giving you more leeway, and also a sliding scale. I think it's great. I had a chance to take a look at the proposed code revisions, and I think that it's a good start. It's a good point for us to move forward, and I think it's something that with based upon what you're presenting, what's been presented before the council here, I think it's something that I could definitely support, if it is presented to us, when it's presented to us, or when we have our discussions. But I think that we're on the right path, and I think this is something that, if it does pan out the way that, that's been presented, I think it would be something good for the town. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Councilor Chair.
First, I just wanted to say thank you. Thank you guys for the PGC. You know, I know we don't have, we're all independently elected boards and that, and we had concerns with the last wording that came through, and you listened, you partnered with us to kind of figure out how we can get there to having more affordable housing. So thank you guys for, you know, taking that input and really kind of mulling it around. I like the idea of the sliding scale. My only sole concern is 5% of 10 units, it's half a unit. So I guess with the sliding dollars, that would account for the, you know, you can't build half a unit, right? So I'm assuming that's what you meant when you said like there would be a sliding, like a fees structure, kind of instead of like the 50,000 bam, even though you can't build half a unit.
Exactly. So if the idea would be that somebody who is building a 20-unit complex with no affordable low is 50, if somebody's building a 10-unit, they go to 25.
Okay.
Yep.
So I think that's really good. I did have a question though around the planning and zoning. You guys are working on the fee schedule and all that. So what are we approving or not approving or discussing tonight? Just, are we establishing the fund? Because.
Oh, no, we're, at this point, all we're doing is reviewing the sample ordinance, if there's any suggestions or commentary that we have. But at this point, if there's no real objection, I think we would want to establish kind of a brief update joint meeting between us and the PZC, and then we go through the ordinance process. I think we actually have to put this out as a public hearing for the council to consider, and then establish the trust fund as an ordinance if that is amenable to the majority of council members.
Okay.
But Amy, or Chairman Powell's hand is up, so.
Thank you very much, Chairman Jones. The idea was to move ourselves out of the vacuum that we were before. And in the conversations that we've been having, wanting you to know that we've gone back to our cubby and we're working on this. And in the sense that Tolland has been a leader in a number of different areas, whether it be solar power, whether it be joint purchasing, you know, this conversation about how do we help the community and help people come to our community, we realized that our initial point, which was a set fee, didn't work. And in particular, it discouraged small development.
Right.
And as we all know, we don't have huge tracts of land anymore that can actually take advantage of the 300 unit type environments. We needed to scale it back. So it was egregious when you looked at the very small developments that they were going to get. You know, that option was going to be very expensive, almost to the point that it became financially unattainable. And that was my point in sending a note to Chairman Jones, is that as we looked at this and we look at the competitive nature, because it's all well and good to have this great idea of affordable housing, but if it isn't affordable to build, it's not going to happen. So we are in competition for people to come, and we want to be able to make ourselves, if we're going to be open for business, and we talk about that in commercial, when we talk about the targeted housing that we're looking at, that's another consideration. So we wanted to give our full knowledge to you folks as we're going forward, so that we can make this decision, because it's all of us, especially as we go forward. And, you know, the other considerations that we have to look at as we look at affordable housing down the line is, do we look at land requirements? 2 acres, is that actually legitimate nowadays? The other concept is, you know, the mind on affordable housing is also shifted from shared housing to individual housing. So then that question becomes, okay, how do you do small housing in a 2 acre demand type environment? Now, we did go off and approve APUs, or auxiliary units, for use for Nana to come in or whatever. But then we have to start taking a look at, how does the smaller buildings become not just affordable, but acceptable and usable? So all these components that are coming into play, you know, we want to have, you know, a bidirectional conversation, because part of that is going to be trust fund. If somebody does, if a developer does want to put the money in, okay, fine, we need to have something we can do with it, but then how do we get that money out, take advantage? So this was part of the conversation where we said we're going to work together on this, because, you know, we're at a point where, you know, the conversation about a dynamic situation is dynamic across multiple situations. Quite frankly, the American dream isn't quite the same as it was 20 years ago. It's amazing the change that's taken place. So we have to adjust to be able to serve our citizens today, but also our citizens in the future. So as we look at this, we want to have bi-directional conversation, but then also realize where the line is. But we also want to give feedback like on the fees and those sort of things.
I'm thrilled to hear about the fees, because, I know as well as that the reputation of Tolland not being business friendly, we've worked really hard to change that. So when I heard about that from Santini, that was like a slap. That was hard to hear.
Yeah.
So it's good that, that was again taken, considered, and we're going to address that because we want more of that positive development. So thank you again for, listening to that feedback and recognizing that we have to do something to make Tolland the place that people want to come and build.
Right. Well, they can come and build. People want to come and build here, but can they actually achieve that? That's how we want to make it easier for folks to be able to do that sort of thing. And I believe that actually the smaller multifamilies may be more appropriate because of the lack of infrastructure that we have with sewer and water being very limited. A place like Santini's that they're going to be putting is only doable on 195. Until we put water and sewer all the way out 74 or other places, it's going to be a challenge. So let's see what we can do with what we have, and let's move forward.
Okay, so I guess then we're just discussing, we're not actually establishing this fund.
Yeah, no, not at this point.
Good, all right. I love it.
Vice Chair Reed?
Just for my own curiosity, do you have a sense of what developers these days are willing to do as far as the fees? You said, David, that you don't want the fee, you'd rather have the affordable housing, but from a developer's standpoint, do you get a sense of where they are these days? Or does it make more sense for them to pay the fee and not have the affordable housing, or the other way around?
It's really going to depend on the developer. So if you're looking at somebody like the Santini's, they don't build affordable. That's just not their market. They're building units that are way too big to possibly be priced at an affordable rent. Just their business model doesn't work for that. There are, I believe, an increasing number of developers that are more amenable to affordable housing within the state, and the number is increasing all the time. And so, is the number going to be the perfect number? Are we going to have to adjust it? We may need to at some point, but from what we can tell, and at least from what we've looked at, this seems to be sort of roughly the best spot to hit in terms of trying to incentivize the affordable housing, and especially once you put in place the potential density bonus, if you want to do even more, that can help to make the market work for somebody to build something affordable. So. One of the things we also have to look at is residential or suburban buyout options have been limited. So the concept out here is a little bit different than it is in urban areas. So as folks want to go out and build in this area, they're not used to having that option to them. So we don't quite know yet, but having that additional option saying, hey, here are different ways that you can build, that makes us more attractive than to other towns that are in our area that are trying to catch up to us. I mean, we've got a huge driver in Mansfield, and they're having trouble. There's been projects that have been going up and down there. I mean, if you look at our main competitor for housing and the main source of a lot of housing that comes in, housing demand is Yukon. And there's been a lot of fluff, a lot of things going on in the Mansfield area that if we're able to take advantage of continued stir there, we can truly take the position of being, this is where you want to live. We're on a major highway. We have major institutions. We have access to things. We have great schools. We have great, all these different services. This is why you want to be buy here. So in a way, it's still novel in the suburban areas.
Okay, and then as a follow-on, how do you develop the fee schedule? I mean, you could charge a fee, and the builder could say, I'll easily pay that, so I don't have to build the affordable housing because I'll make more money. So how does that get developed through your process?
Yeah, so we've got some draft sort of frameworks for fees right now for how it might work. We are, I would say we're still in the research phase on determining the exact number. You know, the 50,000 per 20 units, that was what was initially thrown out by the consultant that had helped develop our reg updates. But, you know, we're still looking into exactly what the optimal market condition number would be to try to get folks to affordable. So by the time we, you know, adopt all this, we'll make sure we have that in place, obviously. But-
Right. Yeah, 'cause I think I remember that Santini development, they were gonna request, am I right about this? They were gonna request a reduction in that?
Yeah, so they requested a waiver of the sewer connection fees or a substantial reduction there. They were very surprised by the planning and zoning permit fees. They didn't even check and then found that the bill was substantially higher than Vernon or Ellington. But we have no way to waive those, so, but they did request that substantial sewer connection reduction, which we
that's fine.
modified the fee schedule to hit.
Thank you.
Councilor Murray and then Councilor Yudichak.
No, I just.
Oh, okay. No worries.
So I think what I'm hearing and from, back in my planning and zoning days, it sounds to me like the fee issue may change as the market changes, right? Right now, we're in one situation, but perhaps in 2 years, when every town has their all their processes in place, like we're working on, it might be slightly different, and you know, as you know, John was pointing out, like the market changes, right? We're talking about establishing planning and zoning is going to establish that the town council will consider an ordinance which would allow for the money to be deposited and then administered. Would it make sense for us to allow for some flexibility in the fee income in that process? So that we can be more responsive to business based on market conditions, or is that not practical?
Yeah, I think the commission discussed that, so I don't know if you have.
Well, I mean, our initial shot in the dark was really a shot in the dark. You know, just establishing the idea of buyout was different than what we had before. As we get in, and now moving to the sliding fee, I mean, part of the entire process is, does it work? And we believe it does work. Now, if this algebra is correct, does it compare to other folks? And, you know, we do have the ability to change that.
Yeah.
You know, so that is there.
Okay.
So this is not cast in stone.
Okay.
Just like the trust fund itself, if you look at it, it could be used for, you know, just from an idea standpoint, not only is it for, you know, maybe an infrastructure buyback, or could it actually be used to help people afford mortgages? I mean, there are lots of different things that you could do with the money once it's established. So we're in chapter 1, but we do have flexibility, but we want to try to get this foundation or this foundation right. So we have a process, but we also have corrective action that can take place. So, you know, we're all living from the not the sins, but the reality of 30 years ago when Rocketdyne moved up here, and this place became the fastest growing city in Connecticut. And then we didn't want to be the fastest growing city in Connecticut. So all the locks that got put in place, we're trying to get the WD-40 out and trying to work these things so that we can be more, so we can do a better job as a community to address the current and potential future reality.
Sure, great. So I think that would be my one piece of feedback on this, is that we do make sure that as the ordinance is developed, that we're giving ourselves as a council, as well as planning and zoning, the needed flexibility to be responsive to market changes or priority changes, so that we can continue our work to be business friendly, without having to, you know, stop everything, have a new public hearing, rewrite the ordinance. Let's give ourselves the flexibility to be responsive.
And then I think Merrily and then
So I just want to reiterate, so the general statute, the Connecticut general statutes give, if the council decides to go ahead and establish this fund, gives you a lot of leeway about what you can use this for, and, you would have a committee that would advise you, right?
Sure.
You would make decisions, but I want to reiterate what Andy said, that really, and what Dave said too, is that our preference is that we hit a sweet spot. We don't know what that is yet, right? It's a really hard thing to find. That provides an alternative, but that we can develop through incentives and through this fee structure and through our requirements, that we will actually get affordable units incorporated as part of housing. So one of the things that happened, 20, 30 years ago, is that when we were growing explosively, is that our available area got used up in what was the 90s McMansion craze, right? So we have a huge number of single family homes that were built then, and some of the potential for building smaller stuff and building more affordable stuff was lost to that era. So that's also part of it too. Now it's like, okay, and also 30 years ago, as Andy just said, the American dream was one thing. I don't know anybody who wants to McMansion anymore. Maybe they're out there. I just don't know them. And so it's, that has changed tremendously. So that we're still working, we're still, those of you who are liaisons to the commission, we're still working away on it. We'll continue to. We just wanted to make sure we had a chance to have this discussion and touch base with you before we go to another joint meeting.
Thank you.
Thank you. And actually, I have one quick question. I don't know if it's, I think the question might be directed to Dave, but Bev might have some institutional knowledge. What role would the nonprofit housing corp possibly play with either the fund or just the language changes in general? Because I feel like you kind of have an institution in place that promotes low to moderate income housing. What avenues can we have to make that more robust or maybe expansive? I think I was thinking you guys, I think every year in April is the Fair Housing Month. And I think we bring up that as something that we've done.
Merrily about the fund, and it could be used probably to improve some of the current elderly housing infrastructure, disabled structure. I know that Tim is working with somebody in our disability committee about the future of a type of disability housing and more inclusive. I was thinking about our affordable nonprofit housing Rolling Meadow.
Yeah.
And I know that they have built a couple other units in different areas of town. So it seems like there's a lot of potential if we put our heads together to kind of recreate those models and to move forward with that. So I'm kind of excited with this opportunity.
I think that the omnidirectional view that the nonprofit commission has would be perfect as an administrator of this, because they're seeing everything. And to have a group here that can see all these different needs that are there, putting this additional component into an existing institution would seem to make sense, but that's outside of our purview.
No, that's fair. I appreciate that. Because I know definitely David has a number of hats he has to wear. So I thought the nonprofit housing corp, I mean, obviously our language as a sample includes them as a part of that affordable housing committee, but it would be good to make sure that groups like that might have a say or might be able to attend meetings to provide their input on how they play a role in affordable housing. Yeah.
Absolutely, and certainly anything that is under their existing purview would be an eligible expenditure out of the funds, so that's good. And yeah, if we want to involve them in administration, that's certainly something we can look into.
Thank you.
Working off of what Katie said, I guess my question is, this is a question I had before too. So how nimble and how quickly nimble can we be? So for instance, I know one of the things we talked about last time was that there was no opt-out in here for you guys. If somebody came in and said they wanted to make this development, but it was too cost prohibitive, if this was the case, I'm not coming, kind of a thing. And you guys hadn't built in like that stopgap into the ordinance to say you have the right to bypass this if the need be. So is the idea that there'll be a sliding scale, kind of the way that we see this, something you guys could work with the developer on if they said, you know,
I
we're
don't,
not gonna come build if it's that amount?
yeah, there's an equation there. One of the things we're trying to do is provide consistency for developers, because developers hate inconsistent rules. And one of the things that we're trying to streamline and consolidate our regulations is to point to consistent behavior, because that's how trust is developed. Trust is the ability to predict somebody's behavior over time. Now, with that being said, we also looked at that thing, the option for bonus densities, density bonuses, that, hey, maybe it doesn't work at this, but if you do more, it does work for you. So, you know, from a fee standpoint, I think we're kind of set in regards to what we can do from a flexibility, because that's a lawsuit. Hey, you gave him 10%, why didn't you give me 10%? And we're building the exact same things. And I don't want to be in that situation. But we're, you know, it's something that we're thinking about, and I think that the density bonus is one of those ways that we could potentially help.
Okay, all right.
So maybe it's not well, I can't do cheeseburger Happy Meals anymore. It's a grilled cheese, you know, grilled chicken. Happy Meal. Yeah, apple. Yeah. But, you know, we're trying to provide flexibility, but having consistency at times hems us in terms of what we can do.
If
But-
something were to come up, though, that you guys needed to consider, it's something that you could probably do within a fairly quick turnaround time if you had to.
We would definitely take it under advisement. I mean, part of this conversation is that we pushed off our requirement to January 1st.
Yeah.
Because we didn't get our ducks lined up. And so we've got until January 1st to be able to get this thing as pretty as we can. But we absolutely expect that it's not gonna be perfect. You know, there's something that's gonna be missed, something's gonna happen, or maybe things get better. You know, there's potentials of development in town that we're not aware of yet, but could happen. So
Thank you guys again for all the work.
happy to be here.
And we're glad you are.
I am too. Thank you very much.
See all of
Yes.
Get back to work.
You're taking a vacation.
I want to make a point that Andy, when did you get out of the hospital? Saturday?
That was Tuesday. Yeah,
What?
last Tuesday. Yeah.
That's Tuesday, so 6 days after getting out of the hospital, you're here. Sat through 2 hours of sign regulations.
I'm telling you.
I was beginning to see a bright light.
If he could withstand that. He is, he sat.
Now you as chair, you know, you can kind of like, you know, shouldn't you be exercising?
Is there any other discussion? You know, I think otherwise at this point, we have the sample ordinance to continue to review if any counselors have any questions or any input from that language. Certainly, you know, you can email to Brian to adjust and modify, but otherwise, I think I think the Vice Chair Regan will work with Chairman Powell and Vice Chair Evie and David to coordinate a future joint meeting, just to put all of our ducks in a row, because we have until January of 2023 to get this in place. So we do have some time, but we want to make sure we keep the ball rolling.
So we have to have 2 public hearings, so we have to have a public hearing and they have to have a public hearing.
There's gonna be public hearings in
Yeah.
there, so
Yeah.
we were
Yeah.
we were backing it in and looking that we wanted to be done by November, right?
I think so.
So that we had time to do the public hearings in November, December. So we're, you know, August, September, October.
We have to have a public hearing though too, don't we?
Yes, we would have to set, have it on a future agenda to vote to have a public hearing be set and advertised, so. Not we have time, but we have to want to keep the ball rolling, so probably setting a meeting in September.
Yeah, I mean, do we want to set that date now?
I would say let's probably take it offline, make sure that all members of both groups can make it. 'Cause I know only 2 to the BZC, it feels lopsided that we could probably all agree on a date, but then you could go back to your,
Don't listen to us.
your folks.
You have a less ruling group than.
He's trying to put the sympathy card right now.
It was in the big car. You only got them for so long, Mary, so long.
I would say probably late August, maybe September, we could get a joint meeting, arrange a special joint meeting, and at that point, we can have setting public hearings in September for October.
And there was October, I would say October and August.
Yeah,
Even because in reality, I mean, we're looking to be done by November.
Yeah.
So that we can put the stuff out, we can have the public hearings, and that gives us all the time that we need to be able to get this. So that's what we're looking at.
Okay.
So,
all right, so we'll shoot for hopefully late August, we'll start working on dates that we can get everybody in the room together.
good, move you away from September and move you into.
We negotiate, we're going back and forth.
That's it.
All right, if there's no other discussion, then we will move on to item 8.4, which is consideration and action on the suspense tax list for June 30th, 2022. I don't believe Jason was able to attend. Have a great night.
Thank you.
Thank you.
But obviously, it's something we've kind of done in the past, with taxes that can't be collected, and transferred over to another law firm that does it for us. And one question I think that was asked at one point to me, and I don't know, Brian, I don't think you would be able to answer it, but is there a reason why we publish everyone's names when we put this up for an agenda item? Certainly, obviously, a lot of it's public information, but it feels very revealing to share so many people, especially people that are deceased, that that's a part of our packet.
Yeah, I saw Betsy Ferry on the list, obviously, so that was, the first time I've gotten a look at that, concur, and I should certainly work, unless there's some requirement that I'm unaware of that we have to publish it. Michelle's here. Michelle, do you happen to know, the answer to that? You're on mute, buddy.
She's working, I think she's on smartphones, probably. Let's see, I don't think so. I think people are allowed to unmute themselves.
Ask to unmute first. You do it over her face, if you hover over her face. Oh, there you go, yep.
It has to unmute. Well, while she works on it, Chairperson, I can certainly, for next time.
No, I got it. So it actually is public information. So anything like taxes or anything on motor vehicles, you cannot see someone's address. But real estate and everything it's public information. So was that question?
I think that clarifies it, yeah, I think there were just concerns from people, especially.
Right. Yeah, I mean, we don't actually publish that anywhere. We just sent it to Rossi Law Firm to see if they can find someone. But it's really not published, but you can look up anyone's name online.
Yeah.
And see if they have back taxes. Did I answer your question?
That covered it for me. Are there any other questions from council members? All right, seeing no other discussion, I get a motion to approve the consideration action as outlined in 8.4.
So moved.
There is a second?
Second.
Good. Any further discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? No abstentions? All right, it is unanimous.
All right,
8.5.
thank you.
Thank you, Michelle. Have a great night.
You too.
Appointments and vacancies on various municipal boards and commissions. We have one appointment to the Tolland Water Commission. They attended the last meeting and they're actually a former member that moved to Anfield, have moved back to Tolland, and now they're actually on the water system. So they're excited to pop back in. So I entertain a motion to approve the appointment as outlined in 8.5.
So moved.
Second by Councilor Murray. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all's in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
That is unanimous. Thank you, everyone. 9, old business. We have none, so we'll move on to item 10, which is the report of the town managers. Do you have any updates?
Right.
What's that?
No updates?
No updates. Well, let me explain. I was told that the town manager's report only comes out every other agenda.
Okay, so I think maybe one question just for the general update, maybe for this part of the meeting is a general, do you have a general update on the firehouse improvement project?
Oh, I do have a day. I have plenty of updates.
Yes.
I don't have the town manager
That's why
report,
I'm
sorry.
like, no update.
Thank you for the softball pitch. I think I was told that. was
No worries.
fantastic. So as I sent you, council chair and vice chair, a timeline of the goal of the town to rebuild 2 of the firehouses at an estimated cost, I believe, of $5 million. They were put out to bid. And I'm going to summarize here. They were put out to bid, and the low bidder came in within the price range. In our due diligence at looking at the low bid and the engineering, we discovered a problem with basically the type of metal, and the metal structure was not a certified structure. There were some other clues that made us question the integrity of not just the metal structure, but the developer as well. So we got a consensus, spoke with Attorney Conti, and decided to reject all the bid offers. The cost of 2 firehouses would certainly at this point go well over the authorized money, and Lisa can talk more to that. So at this point, our path that we discussed was to put out to bid a single firehouse. That would be the Gearing Road one. After talking to Chief Vitale, which one was which one is in the greatest need of replacing. Depending on what that bid looks like after, we may consider instead of replacing Plains Road. Again, this is now moving beyond that, is refurbishing it, a new roof, a new bag, that sort of thing. To get beyond that, depending on the costs. Again, the costs have gone up virtually 100% on a lot of the products and materials since it first went to bid long before I was here. And in an effort not to overspend, that is where we are now. We would like to, or we're considering putting out to bid the single firehouse. Right now, we're getting an engineering cost, what the estimate is going to be, but as we've seen, the estimates, by the time the estimate comes in and it goes out to bid, the bids are all well over the estimate, and that's what we saw last time. So we're trying to spend responsibly. We are in a position, like I believe Lisa can explain, where we have to move forward as well with something. So that's where we stand. I have a team here ready to answer any questions.
All right, I think maybe this, but yeah, it might be good, Lisa, if you might be able to explain some of the financial impacts and what we can or can't do at this point, or where we might be hamstrung by the bond resolution or the referendum that was passed.
Okay, well, there's a number of things that we can possibly do in this situation. Currently, we had all intentions of moving forward with this back in last year when we started the whole process with the engineering and everything. And with that in mind, we also went out to issue bond anticipation notes to be able to pay for the services moving forward. When all this happened, now we have spent some of those funds, but not all of them. The notes will be coming due in September, and at that point, I'll need to figure out what I'm doing with that. That has basically started the clock ticking with the bonding resolution that we have in place. We have a certain amount of years to be able to complete the project based on our charter and federal tax law requirements and spend down. It's very technical, and I don't want to get into all the details of spend downs and percentages and all that. So at this point, we have a couple of options as to either keep moving with that one particular project, at least to use some of the funds that we have already issued and move forward with it. But we will also have to look at changing the scope of the project that was in the original bonding resolution, depending on how things move forward. What I may be doing is, when the notes come due in September, depending on how much we'll need for just one firehouse to be done, and the others I may only reissue enough debt to cover that and pay back the rest, which will help with part of the problem that we're in. Because we had originally issued $3.1 million to move forward. That was the plan, to move forward with this piece. You have any other questions regarding the financing or where we go from here?
All right, open the floor to any questions from council members. Yeah.
Katie and I are with.
Yeah. I'll start with Council Neercheck.
He's going to take them back.
Yeah.
Anyways. Not that question, and more of a statement. This is a mess. I mean, we went to the community and asked them to vote on something and we're not even getting what we vote over me, especially as a resident, not just a counselor, you know, it's. I don't even have words. It's very disappointing. We don't have the money to cover it. Now we have to use other funds. It's just. How do we tell the public that we screwed up so bad?
Well, just let me at least address that. We did not screw up on this. When the funding amounts were put in place, there were extra contingencies added and everything. Then COVID hit and the economic environment blew up after we had already started the project. Moving forward, it wasn't anything that staff did incorrectly. It's the economy and how things got impacted. You can see just when the chief was speaking earlier this evening about the fire trucks and ambulances, the prices of everything is doubling, and it's beyond our control, and it's happening in many of our other commodities as well. So it really wasn't anything that the town did to screw it up. There was the engineering was done in the beginning, making sure that the estimators used everything that was current going forward. And unfortunately, this is beyond our control. It had nothing to do with how things were put together initially.
I'll say that. Thank you, Lisa.
Councilman Murray.
So Lisa, honestly, I'm not very interested in blaming anyone. And I have a lot of confidence in you and the town staff that have been working on this project. But there are a lot of questions that indicate that this project did not, in fact, go through the best practices of a building project in a municipality. Where's the building committee? Who's chair of the building committee? Where's the liaison to the building committee? Where are our regular updates? You know, that's just like the tip of the iceberg here. It's kind of a debacle right now. And, you know, we can spend hours of time that I don't really have and you don't have, kind of rehashing how we got here. I'm not that interested in that. I'm interested in what is the best path forward for our town to have the appropriate infrastructure for our public safety department. Because that's the problem that's in front of us. We don't have the appropriate infrastructure. I'm interested in how to get it. And it seems to me that the current path we're on is not working. And I wonder if we should continue on this path, or is it time for us to say, hey, whoa, every time we turn around, we hear bad news about this project. And again, not interested in saying it's somebody's fault. I know the market, we all are aware of the market conditions, but from my point of view, there are two big issues that we need to be able to respond to, and they're hand in hand. The first is we have a responsibility to almost 15,000 residents in our town, who many of whom voted in favor of replacing 3 firehouse infrastructures so that we can continue to invest in the public safety department in our town. And that's obviously important. We hear firsthand stories about that even just tonight. That's very important. And I think it's important to everybody. And the second is, how do we find a solution? Because the current path seems to me like it's not working. And I don't know the answer to this, but I would ask that, and I don't expect us to come to a resolution on this issue tonight, right? There's too many questions, but I would ask that the town staff team consider that maybe the path we're on isn't the best one. And if that's the case, maybe how do we get off this path and where do we start from here? Because there are 15,000 residents in town who deserve an answer to how can we ensure that public safety is maintained in our town, knowing that we have an infrastructure problem. And they're not interested in, and I'm not interested, certainly someone who calls an ambulance at 2 a.m. on Saturday morning because they're having a heart attack, they're not interested in hearing that market conditions changed. And now it's too expensive. What they're interested in is hearing a solution. How are we going to get there? And I think that this is a great opportunity for Brian to lead us into a solution here that I don't know that it's on the path we're on.
So Lisa, let me jump in. So there's no doubt that the economy of materials outran the estimated costs. In the simplest of terms, as I would understand it, we have X amount of dollars to rebuild 2 new firehouses. That's where we are. I know there's a plan for 3 down the road, and we're working on that. That in consultation with all of the staff involved, we decided that we need to move forward and at least get Garing Road underway. That is the oldest by, it's got Plains Road outrun by a decade or more. And that's the one that's most prudent. In talking to, and it was John who brought the idea that, okay, maybe we don't need to rebuild, and it'd be more fiscally prudent to refurbish Plains Road, given the cost increases. I don't know if we're going to be able to do that within the X amount of money that we have to spend. As you know, there's some considerations that when building 2 firehouses in a town, there's some savings with building 2. Now that's well beyond the 5 million. But so that the cost of one, you can't just take the cost of the 2 firehouses, split it in half and say that's what one's going to cost. There's going to be some variations there. And some market fluctuation that hopefully we'll have a fair estimate from Chuck, our engineer, on. But in my estimation, and I'll accept responsibility for the decision, it's prudent that we move forward with at least 1 firehouse while we can. We'll look at the leftover budget that we have, and is it enough to do the second refurbish? And if it is, we'll take the proper steps in moving forward there. I hope I answered your question, Councilor.
Yeah, I mean, if you're telling us that that's the best path forward, I'm not on this building committee. Had my turn at that, and I'm very happy to not be having my turn called again. But I think that you might consider putting together a building committee now so that, there are more residents in town who have the opportunity to give input. I don't know. I'm just throwing out ideas, but I don't know the solution, and I certainly don't know all the nuance and the minutia involved in coming to a conclusion. I mean, I get that it's hard, believe me.
Yep.
I know it's hard, but it seems like every time we hear an update on this project, it's more of a debacle. And that's pretty concerning, because our residents did go out and vote for a set number of dollars for not one, not two, but 3. And now we're talking about we're gonna move forward with 1. Like, we have some serious answers to give
But
to
I
our
think there's some
community.
understanding that things have radically changed
Absolutely.
since the 3, and we have to play the cards we have been dealt at this point and do the best we can. In that determination, again, working with John and again, his idea is to replace 1 and 2. I can't say enough. I don't believe it. I was just a resident living on Gary Road when this started.
Yeah.
I believe if we had not had the radical impacts to society and business and the economy and the workforce and fuel, I think this would be, firehouse would have got built, and this would be, we'd be celebrating new firehouses here. Unfortunately, that's not the case, so we have to play the cards we're dealt, and I believe that's the best case, and I'm sorry that we're in this position. I do feel confident as a parent like yourself and a resident with an elderly mom around the corner, and having watched the fire department do CPR in my home as well with less success. I have a complete confidence in their ability to keep us safe for a long time. We at the same time, we voted to provide them the best tools to do it, and we're going to try to do that.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Councilor Luba, continue.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I agree wholeheartedly with Ms. Murray here. I mean, and let me start off by saying that because just like Andy was a recipient of some great services, so was I several years ago. Life-saving services that really brought me here where I am now. And so everything I say is out of concern to make sure that we provide the best services that we can for the town. I, as a town council member, when we were presented this before and when we went to referendum, I feel like we were given a bad bill of sale. That we were sold something that was not, that really, and now it's looking in hindsight, like it was never going to be something that we could accomplish. That the way that I understood it was that what we were presented was something that all you have to do is just give us the money and we are ready to go. And that referendum was last May. So it's been a year. So I understand there's a lot of factors that come into play here, a lot of issues regarding money and change in circumstances. We all see it, feel like that commercial. We all see it, that kind of, but at the same time, there was no action on it. And it was something that, again, I think everybody here in town believed that it was going to be something where pass the money, go, that we have somebody lined up. That everything was presented to us as far as this is the structure, these are the manufacturers, this is everything. We've done this, we've studied it, and this is what we want. It's exactly what we need. And and Brian, you're put in a typical position because you're now the encountering the wrath of Khan on this one, but it's at the same time. Sorry, now you've not.
That's coming.
Yeah, but it's one of those things where we were just presented something, and I don't think any of us really, I thought that it was ready to go. And I don't think that any of us ever anticipated being here. Not that you could ever anticipate developments that have like this occurring, but I really am having a hard time with us saying, after telling everybody in town last year, we're gonna have 3 hot firehouses. These are the plans. They showed us the plans. They showed everything that was laid out. And of course, this is the manufacturer they're going to use. And now to have it, oh no, we can't use any of that because it was, and then we were told that this was something that they'd been planning for years before. So it's not like something that was just brought up and out of the blue created, but this is something that had been going on for some period of time where, this is our plan for the future from 10 years ago. And now, we have to deal with this. I just have a real hard time with it. And I agree wholeheartedly. I think it's something that we need a building committee. That we need a building committee on this, and we need to start basically looking at this from square one. And really going through and showing what we need, showing what it is, because what I don't want is just us slapping up a metal garage like I have in the back of my house, where it's not, it's just be something when it's not gonna be functional. If we're gonna do it, we should do it right. We owe that to our town. We owe that to the residents who voted for this and said, yes, we have faith in you as our town leaders to do the right thing. Well, now it's time for us to stop and do the right thing and really take a hard look at this and really reassess where we are. Again, I'm not placing blame on anyone. There's a lot of factors that came into play here that brought us where we are. But there was I think a lot of misunderstanding by us on the council as well as our residents as far as how far along this project actually was when it was presented to us. And so I think that we need to go forward with a building committee. I think that we need to start and take a hard look at this. I think that we really need to go through and really assess the needs of what we have before we go forward with anything. I mean, I understand the urgency, I understand the needs, I understand how important it is that we have a functioning public safety force and that we have a functioning firehouse. But at the same time, we owe it to our residents to move smartly but expeditiously.
Thank you, Councilman. I agree that the worst thing that could happen to us is to have the residents lose confidence in town government and then be in public safety. In my when I voted yes for this way back when, in my review now of it, it looks as though the costs and the ability to get this through was done with the thinnest razor thin margin of error. And I recognize the weight of retaining the town's confidence in our abilities to move forward. And I didn't get us in there. I'm going to do everything I can to get us out. I think it's reasonable to consider a building committee. I don't think it's a heavy lift. I could be wrong, as I've yet to put together a building committee. So,
Katie, I can tell you.
okay.
Katie more than me.
But by the expression on Katie's face, it doesn't seem like I'm going to enjoy it very much, but I will do that. I will look into that.
Think of 300. You will not enjoy this.
Thank you. But again, I didn't get us in here. I hate to have the town lose confidence. I'll do everything I can to lead us out. Thank you.
So, I guess maybe just from like a historical perspective, John and I are the most senior, like on council. And maybe where this kind of went awry is this is something that has been being talked about for a long time. And I know when it was brought forward, John and I both said, well, this is the plan. Have we like gone back and looked at this? And, it definitely was, yes, we've talked to these people, we've had the same people, we have it, we're good. And I think this kind of gets back to what Katie was saying earlier around the no bid stuff. Like if we look at what's outstanding right now from a public safety perspective, we've got 2 fire trucks, an ambulance, and now 3 firehouses. That's a lot in one department for the town to be trying to juggle and manage and handle. I'm gonna have to jump on with everybody else that I'm a little concerned. We have to find a way. We need to get something out to the public because we went out for a referendum and we said, approve $5 million and we're gonna give you $3 million. And now we're saying you approve $5 million and we make it 1. I think we need to let the public know that this whole thing has shifted. And you brought up very, very valid points. The market has changed. All these other things have happened in that. But I do think we need to let the public know that we are not going to meet the needs that we asked of them and that they approved for us. That I think is a really big thing that we have to kind of conquer here. My question back to you in regards to a building committee or anything else. Do we slow the roll on this? Do we look at this and say, what let's get out to the public and then say, what can we do? Does it make sense to put a Morton building in Garen? Do we need to look at how much would it be to refurb both the stations rather than total ground up rebuild? Is there a way to still get 2 of the 3 with that 5 million? And I think to do that, we're probably going to need somebody that's gonna overarching manage this. And that kind of gets me to my next part. I know Bev is here, but from a succession planning perspective, you know, when we brought Leslie on, that entire position specifically was for projects and for grant funding. So making sure we've got the person that we hire to kind of look at learning from Bev how to manage a project of this size going forward. It's kind of all like, you know, these two said, it's kind of all a mess right now. So coming in and learning how to do that, I think is going to be a valuable thing for her to learn from a succession planning perspective, but I'm just really concerned on how we're going to frame this to the public and how we are going to utilize the tax dollars in the best way possible. So I'm definitely interested in whether or not we can do a building committee, or do we look at slow the roll? What can we do with 5 million? How's the best usage of this? Is it a Morton building? Is it, you know, refurbing, Garing first, then what's left with Plains? But I think we have got to, we can't count on the fact that people are watching what we're doing here. We have to let the people know that this has changed, because if we have to go back out for more money for station 140 and have not like fully been 110% transparent with everybody, we're gonna get slammed on it. And rightfully so, we should get slammed on it, right? You know, we sold them 5 million for 3. And I think people will understand, market has changed, things have changed now, but I think we owe it to them to not lay blame anywhere, but just this is what's happening. And this is what we want to do. And this is where we think we're gonna go and go from there.
Concur.
I just echo briefly that I agree that having a building committee would be important. To something else that leading up to the referendum vote, there was a lot of media and attention developed by public safety to really promote this. And there's still actually an active dedicated firehouse capital improvement project page that probably hasn't been updated since the referendum. I think that would be the medium to have that updated and blasted out in the public with links, information, and probably as transparent as possible, a timeline of how we got to where we are now and you know, what we are considering as next steps going forward, because I didn't consider at one point the idea of whether or not we could refurb, and I don't know, this falls under people much higher than me in engineering and specialization, but if there's an opportunity to use the same amount of funds to refurb, that seems something that would be more in alignment with our goals in terms of wanting to improve 2 out of 3 fire stations within our council goals in our term. But I do recognize that the replacements, I think when they were presented, had their own spec design, and that there was intentions for newer, bigger equipment to be able to fit, and that new equipment that they have now, the apparatuses, were very difficult to even store in existing. So the refurb, from my perspective, may not be the most viable option, which in that case, to me, I would almost say that we need to move forward with at least one. And you know, unfortunately, that brings us to a future discussion of a new referendum in the next year to be considered, or at least have discussions on for the remaining firehouses, especially the one for Cumming Foundation, even if it's in not terrible conditions. You know, I think we're still potentially considering state bonding money, but I think with this referendum, or with kind of the debacle that we're seeing, I don't even know if that $1 million would help towards the project. I think it would be a moot point to even ask for the state for that money. I know.
Keep moving, keep moving. Keep
Well, then
moving.
we have to commit to keeping with that. But that's just my commentary, but it is certainly disappointing, but I hope I'm confident that the staff working with Ryan and yourself here will be able to move forward. Sure.
So I agree with what everybody is saying, except maybe the building committee. And my concern with that is, it seems to me that every day we wait, things get more and more expensive. So if we take months to develop, get volunteers for building committee, prices are just going to continue to go up. So that's just something I thought about and thought I'd throw out there. I think the sense of urgency, I think, is imperative at this point, because prices aren't going to come down anytime soon from what I can see. You know, so.
And as it was framed to me, Mr. Vice Chair, is that, as Lisa explained, there's some expediency that we need to get it out, otherwise face tax penalties and issues with bonding. If we don't get something moving, I'm somewhat naive to that, those numbers and how that works, but if you had questions, I'm sure she could reframe that again.
Okay, very good. Thank you. That's all I have. Councilor Chair for a second time.
So that just brings up something important there. First of all, we're all discussing this and it's not on an agenda. So that's first part of public notification, right? We can't make any decisions or anything in this because this is the town manager's report and we're now all talking about solving an issue that the public has not had a chance to weigh in on. Very, very, very concerned, not concerned, but I want to understand what Lisa's talking about, those tax ramifications because of the BANs and everything else. So is there any way to get this on the immediate next, will that give you enough time if we get this on like the immediate next agenda to be able to discuss this and not get us into those tax implications because that gets us already into August?
You mean to have Lisa come on and explain the possible penalties and tax implications in the next agenda? I'm sure she's probably prepared to do that now. I'm sure she can prepare in the next agenda.
Okay, so I think that would be good. And then if you have any kind of, if we can get something that any kind of feedback on what the plan is right now as the stopgap, what we're going to do, how we're going to handle it, what we have to do because of the bonding piece of it. And also get notification out to the public to be aware of that. I think we need to discuss this in a manner that the public has an opportunity to have input.
I think much of that will mirror what was said here tonight, and we'll be prepared to do that.
Awesome. Everybody take notes.
I know, I think Lisa put them back, this is back on camera, so I guess if you are able to answer at any point, Lisa, some of the inquiries Councilman Nuccio had.
Yeah, I've been here the whole time. I just shut the camera off while you all were talking, so I can make funny faces and things like that. I'm only kidding. Certainly, Councilor Nuccio, regarding the bonding, what happened was we had issued the debt. I was working with our bond counsel this afternoon and trying to find some loopholes. I'm sorry if you hear noises in the background, there's someone yelling here. Trying to find loopholes in the laws to try to see what we could do to manage the issuance of the bond anticipation notes. One option that we were able to do is I could repay the notes and then the portion that we have already spent, as long as other percentages have been expended within 3 to 5 years, we may be okay with it, with managing that side of it. One has to be what is called a small issuer allowance. So that's one of the things that I talked to him about today. Now, what we can do under the town charter, if we have an encumbrance out there, the project can be pushed out 5 years, but the problem that we're also seeing is interest rates are rising. I don't want to make foolish decisions just to try to, lock in interest rates and things like that. We certainly have to make sure that the right decisions are being made for this project going forward. So, one option I can do is to pay off the portion of the debt that has not been spent as of yet, but then we move on the project later on, but still we're going to have to move on it one way or another. Certainly communication to the community is very important. And this is just the first step of even talk. Well, I had spoken to you about it back in June. And at that point, we were in a good situation with the funding as far as the two houses. And then right after Brian started, that information came out regarding the contractor. So that just kind of threw a wrench in the whole thing. But that, neither here or there, regarding the bonding side of it, we need to be making decisions going forward as to exactly what we're going to do with this project. One being, if we're going to do 2 firehouses and then try to still get that grant from the state that we're hoping for, then we could look at different methods of working with the public, either through a capital improvement program with using part of the bonding, and possibly under the 5% rule of the charter, depending on where we are with the rest of our capital projects. We could look at possibly some offset with ARPA funds. That's certainly to be discussed with the council and the subcommittee. There's different options, but there's different legal procedures that have to be put into place and able to do in order to do that. For example, with the state grant, if the state grant comes in, it basically offsets the bond the way the resolution is written right now. If we want to take advantage of the state grant and try to use other funds to be able to accomplish all three properties, there's just a way we can change that around through, of course, all through public hearings and resolutions that have to be up on the up and up. But those are the decisions that have to come in the future, and certainly would be with the council and the town manager involved in that process as to where to head next. So with, as of this morning, I was under the impression that we would have to rush with this and at least move forward with part of it. Now I'm being told that I can maybe delay it a little bit going forward, and he's getting me the attorney's getting more information tomorrow if there's anything else we can do. Does that help?
Yes, it does. Thank you. I think that's just going over that again with all that detail, in a meeting with the public would be useful.
Sure.
And the last thing, Brian, just to kind of give you a heads up, one of the things that I'd like to see when we have that meeting is just to understand how it happened with a contractor, that we got someone who gave us an approved structure. Like, is there something we can do procedure wise that we don't encounter something like that again?
Well, I think it's a positive that within our due diligence, we discovered
Absolutely.
that flaw. And yeah, I'm certain that Chuck could write some definitions to prevent that exact one, that type of uncertified metal building. Fairly easy to weed that out. Hopefully no other ones rear their heads.
Perfect.
Thank you. Are there any other questions or comments from councilors? Council members?
I'll just say one thing.
Yes. Councilman.
Not that I don't think the town or anybody works hard, especially the fire department. Tonight I was too, but it's just, again, really disappointing as a president, like we said, this started what last May?
It was approved last night. Started about 6 years ago.
But anyways, I like the ideas that would put forth, and I would still like to at least have 2 firehouses up.
Thank you, sir. Other questions for Brian regarding, the county manager report? Seeing none, we'll move on to item 11, which is the adoption of minutes. So I would entertain a motion to approve the minutes that are laid out in 11.1 and 11.2.
I'll make a motion.
Is there a second?
I'll second it.
All right. Any discussion? All those in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
It's unanimous. Correspondence to council.
So this is email communications between our last meeting and tonight, so July 13th through July 26th. It's 5 emails, 2 regarding Veterans Memorial, 1 regarding heat pumps, 1 regarding electric school buses, and 1 regarding Tolland Library community conversation.
Thank you, Councilor Murray. Chairperson's report, I'll just say really quickly at this point, 1 week from Thursday, we'll be having the August chair hour at the library in person. So encourage people to come if they have any questions. And then we did receive a communication to the council that I put in front of me from Kathy, thanking all of us for the sympathies that we provided to them for the loss of their sister. So I just wanted to make sure you're all aware that they sent that, and I'll pass around to everyone, but just thank everyone for coming together to support her during that difficult time. And then kind of moving on into communications and petitions from council persons, obviously Merrell Road came before us and spoke about a statement that the council can make. I think it would be incumbent upon of us, as we did a statement against racism, I think last year, that we should consider using similar rant language to craft a statement against, vandalism or targeted hatred against, the LGBTQ community. So I think it might be good for the council to consider some language, maybe looking at the statement against racism and adopting something similar that we posted, so that we're kind of unified in front that what happened that Sunday afternoon, early evening is not acceptable, and we don't condone that kind of activity as a community. And that's it for me at this point for communications and petitions. So I'll open the floor to any other counselors with petitions.
Yeah.
Your check.
First, I know you did the word of silence for first class Sergeant Michael Clark, have over service of over 20 years. I just want to make note in the minutes for that. There's a mom and a sister that live in this town. So I just wanted to make sure that was in the minutes. And then I was just gonna comment too on the vandalism of Miss Davies' property. It'd be nice if we could recognize somehow. I know it's political, but I think we should be able to come together and craft something that's not political. I'm not sure. And then I want to also thank Mr. Foley and Chairman Jones for speaking up about vandalism on Fox News and in the JI. So I think that was good leadership, showing that it's a serious issue. Tolland shouldn't take that. I think that's all. Oh, and my goals. I know Claudette also mentioned the water issue. Is there any update that can be provided right now, or is that still been ongoing? Anything?
Nothing has developed over this last week.
I think, yeah, I think that's all I have for now.
Any other counselors with Councilman Murray?
Yeah, I wanted to just remind everyone that Tolland Youth Services Summer Theaters play is this weekend. It's Friday, Saturday night, 7 p.m. at the high school. It's Shrek the musical. And I think that the group is really excited to be back together after a couple of year hiatus due to COVID. And I personally would like to send a shout out and a thank you to Gina Zahner, who really stepped up to do this play this year. And Nancy has been great. She's there every night as a volunteer. So it's really wonderful to see some continuity, but also some new faces. And my 10-year-old couldn't be more excited to have her one line in that play. So I will be there both nights, but there's more tickets available. You can buy them at the door. Fun to see Shrek the musical. I also wanted to add my agreement that I think we should make a statement regarding inclusion in the community in line with Ms. Beebe's proposal. The vandalism of that rainbow sign may be considered a hate crime, as it was targeted vandalism of this prominent symbol of the LGBTQ plus community, and to have such an act of hate happen so close to home is quite alarming. But I believe the persecution of this crime, that's for the police, whom I have a lot of confidence to take care of that. I do want to specifically send a heartfelt thanks to the numerous friends and family, neighbors who came out in support of my family to make sure that we were doing okay, and that we remind us of how loved and supported we are here in town. It was really very heartening to have so many phone calls and texts and people really just showing us a lot of support. So thank you for that. In the face of an act of hate, the outpouring of love and support reminds me and my family and kids, it's so important that we all remember that love does indeed conquer all. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Councilman Murray. I think Councilman, did you ever hand up next?
No, I mean, it's all been said. I mean, that's, I've been late to the game all night tonight, so, but, no, I would wholeheartedly agree with everything that's been said at this point. And I appreciate it, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Councilor Lugo.
I agree also, I think, a statement is in line with this, Tolland has worked really hard to be a diverse and inclusive town. And there are people who will say it's political, but it's not. People aren't political, it's a people thing. And it's a time to just say Tolland doesn't, we're not gonna have it. You fight ignorance with love.
Vice Chair Egan.
So I'll join everybody else. I think the statement is great, but when this whole thing with the vandalism happened, it surprised me is the response in the community. One guy with a can of spray paint. This is what we get. Some little jerk decides to vandalize a sign, and I see my town manager on TV making a statement. I see the council chair making a statement. I see residents on TV making a statement. Multiple articles in the JI, including last night, and the new sign was on the front page of the JI, and I thank everybody who had a hand in producing that new sign. And when I thought more about it, I thought, if somebody vandalizes my car, nobody cares, but when somebody vandalizes that sign, it means something because that sign carries a message. And I don't want this one little jerk with a can of spray paint to define this town. I don't want that person to have that kind of power. I choose not to give him that kind of power. Right, so I'm hopeful that they'll find out who did it and he'll get the appropriate punishment. But getting back to that sign, it does mean something. It means something to me. It means something to my family. So from my perspective, I reject the whole thing. I'm really upset that happened. And but I don't want one little jerk with a can of spray paint to define this town. Because as Katie said, her family had an outpouring of support. And to me, that's what Tolland is about. It's not about this guy. Hopefully this guy wasn't from Tolland, and hopefully we'll find out who it was and he'll get the appropriate punishment. But, I think that it's important what happened and it's important. The response to it was important too. So from my perspective, I hate what happened and I support the community, and I'm really thankful that that sign was replaced, and I'm thankful for your kind words, and I love the fact that your family was supported, and it means something to me as well. So hopefully this doesn't happen again, and hopefully that sign will be there for a long time to come.
Thank you, Vice Chair Egan. Are there any other communications or petitions for Councilor Don?
I hate whatever happened, but it's like the only one thing I liked it. The whole community came together and supported each other, and I think that's one of the best things came out. That's it.
Thank you, Councilor Don. And then if Brian, if you had your hand, you're gonna respond to it.
Yeah, thank you. Just a suggestion, I do have some experience on this. I don't want to say that we want to spike the football, but to get the best bang for the buck, I've asked True Beckman for an update this morning. I don't know where we're going here, but just I wanted an update investigation anyways. Should there be an arrest of this gentleman that needs obviously some help, and hopefully he gets the help or others have to find him, that would be a great time to put out your joint statement to get the best bang for the buck, to ensure that everyone covers it and hears your unified stance on top of that, because they'll cover the rest and hit that off. Well, just a suggestion, but I'll keep you posted, Mr. Chair and Mr. Vice Chair, throughout the whole thing, and make suggestions as appropriate in regards to the statement.
Sounds good. Thank you, Brian. Nice to meet you.
I think this is a good opportunity. I had reached out to Steve when it happened, and I think this is actually a good opportunity to take away the rhetoric, like you were saying, that this is political. And I think people linked it to the political because the name on the top of the sign, where I think this is an opportunity for us to remove the name on the top of the sign and just say, Tolland does not, like this is an overarching, this is not a political statement. This is not the Tolland Democrats sign saying we welcome this. You take that out of it and it's just a statement from the town of Tolland, period. And it's an opportunity to remove that rhetoric and that that natural inclination to fight that which you are not, right? So if there's any willingness from anybody out there to have a sign somewhere that just says Tolland is an inclusive community. Love is love, whatever we wanted to say across the board, and just have it be a whole overarching, like I had said that in a Facebook post, it's not a political thing. I guarantee you, the people that would turn out to do something like that aren't thinking of the stupid letter after your name. So, I put that out there, that anybody in the community, you want to host a sign that just says Tolland is not, does not welcome or is inclusive, however, we give it the power we give it. And if people are willing to step up and remove that power, then I'm the first person in line. I have some painting skills, so.
Thank you. Yeah. Any other communications or petitions? All right, seeing none, we'll move on to item 15, which is public citizen participation on any subject of the jurisdiction of town council with a 3-minute limit. You are online, you can star 9 or the raise hand function. And if you're in the audience, Bev, you can also. Great. Once. Going twice.
Motion to adjourn.
16, the motion to adjourn at 9:17 p.m. Colin, you got beat.
2 seconds.
Thank you, my Councilman Lupa. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor, say by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Unanimous. Thank you, everyone. Have a great night.